Welcome to the House of Truth. The day we're continuing our series on the kings of Israel, or the days of the days of the kingdom. I'm sorry, the days of the kingdom. And last time we talked about the source of loyalty, and we saw there actually was with David and Jonathan and Abiathar on one end, how they were loyal to each other, and David was even loyal to Saul. Even Abiathar's father, Ahimelech, had said this to Saul, and Saul himself acknowledges, finally maybe acknowledges this. But Saul has always thought people were David was out to get him, and he was convinced himself David was out to kill him, and and he suspected everyone being disloyal to him. He accuses not only his son, his tribe, and so on and so forth. And of course, we saw others also. The priests who were loyal, the soldiers who were loyal to God would not kill the priest when Saul ordered him. But Doeg, this Edomite, who had no relationship with God, did. And that was the key to the whole thing, is that loyalty from God, loyalty, a relationship with God is the source of loyalty. And when you don't have one, if you don't have one, you're taking on the characteristics of the devil who's disloyal. So the day, so now the day we're gonna look at the hand of vengeance. And we're in the day as we continue on, we're looking at three episodes in the life of David that bring out really what the Word of God says we're supposed to do with the hand of vengeance. Whenever we have an opportunity, when someone's done us wrong, we have an opportunity to avenge ourselves or to end their persecution. Except we're going to begin here in 1 Samuel 24, 1 through 4. We read these words. And it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, I was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. They came to the sheepcotes by the way, and there was a cave. And Saul went to cover his feet, and David and his men reside in the sides of the cave. And the men of David said to him, Behold the day which the Lord has said unto you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do unto him as it seems good to you. And David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily. Okay, well, we see here, uh, and Getty, remember spring of the young goats, referring to these wild goats, only place in the Middle East today where native leopards still live. There's a colony of about 12 or so down in Engedi. It's an oasis at the south end of the Dead Sea on the Israeli side. And so the shepherds were out there too. They were probably herding goats, sheep, mix. Now these sheep coats, these little houses for the sheep, and there was a cave there. And when Saul went, now the cover his feet means he was pissing, he was taking a leak, urinating, perhaps good way to say it as any. And what they did was because it would splash off the rocks, they'd cover the feet with a piece of cloth. So it was just referred to as covering his feet. Well, he doesn't know David and his men, heard Saul coming, and they went to hide in this cave. And now he's trapped in there between them. And his men are urging him to kill Saul, to take vengeance on him and end this persecution. But instead, he cuts off the robe of Saul instead of doing him any any, physical harm. We continue on 1 Samuel 24, verses 5 through 7. And we read the following. And it came to pass after that David's heart smote him because he cut off Saul's skirt. He said to his men, the Lord forbid I should do this thing to my master. The Lord's anointed to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. And David stayed his servant to these words and suffered him not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. Okay, so after David did, he regretted even doing this because this embarrassed Saul, of course. And David refused to take vengeance on Saul because Saul had also been anointed by the Lord. So, and he kept his own men from killing Saul at all as well. They wanted to just kill him, and they could quit being on the run. David be king, so on and so forth was their thinking. But David wouldn't have it. So we continue on here in 1 Samuel 24 and verse 11 through 8, and we see what happens next. And David arose afterward, went out to the cave, and cried after Saul, saying, my lord the king. And Saul looked behind him, and David stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, Wherefore hearest you men's words, saying, behold, David seeks your hurt. Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord has delivered you into my hand in the cave, and some bade me kill you. But I spared you. I shall not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, see the skirt of your robe in my hand, for in that I cut the skirt off your robe and killed you not. Know you and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand. I have not sinned against you, yet you hunt as my soul to take it. Okay. So David let Saul know he could have killed him. And notice he calls him my father, my Lord. Okay. Acknowledges he's the king. So David's not disloyal to Saul at all, but he's not but he's not going to he's not going to put himself in Saul's hands either. So now we're looking. So he let Saul know he could have killed him, but he didn't, even though his men wanted him to. Now we're going to continue on in Judges 24. First Samuel, 24, in verses 12 and 15, and we're going to see. We're going to look at the rest of David's statement here to begin with. And the Lord about why he didn't kill him. More he's just as anointed. Lord, judge between me and you, and the Lord avenge me of you. My hand shall not be upon you. As to the proverbs of the ancients, wickedness proceeds forth from the wicked. But my hand shall not be upon you. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom you pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? Lord, therefore, judge between me and you, and see and plead my cause, deliver me out of your hand. Okay, so David makes it really plain. The hand of vengeance is not his. The Lord will avenge me of you. But the hand of vengeance doesn't belong to him. And wickedness, and and we and I should have mentioned this a moment ago. Notice men were telling Saul this, playing on his paranoia for whatever reason. Didn't like David for whatever reason. It wasn't just that evil spirit. There were people plotting against David. Perhaps they had positioned in Saul's kingdom and wanted to keep him, or or various other things, or perhaps as long as Saul was mad at David, he wasn't going crazy on them. Who knows? But they definitely wanted. They were definitely feeding Saul these lies about David, which he plainly showed. That's the wickedness proceeded from the wicked. You know, you know, but the king. I mean, a dead dog, can't be any harm. A flea, I could arguably bite you or something, but it's not worth the effort chasing down. So he tells him, the Lord's going to judge between them. The Lord's going to avenge him, and the Lord's going to deliver him out of his hand. David does not need to take vengeance into his own hands. In 1 Samuel 24, verse 16 to 19, we continue with this. It came to pass, David and the maid speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, "This is your voice. This is your voice, my son, David. Oh, is this your voice, my son, David?" And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I. For you have rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded you evil. You have shown me. You've shown this day how that you have dwelt. Oh wait, shown this day how that you have dwelt well with me. For as much as the Lord delivered you into your hand, you killed me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go away well away? Therefore the Lord reward you good for that you have done to me this day." Okay, he acknowledges David. David could have killed him very easily, and he's more righteous than Saul because he rewarded Saul good for, for evil. This should remind us of the words of Messiah: "Bless those who persecute us." That's what David's doing. That's what David has done here. He reckons the Lord delivered him into his hand. And Saul's mournful of his actions, but he's not. He's not. He's not. He's still in the most stable mind. But at this moment, he's under conviction about how he's treated when he saw David. It also reminds us of the words of Shaul the Apostle Paul. Do not repay evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. And that's what Saul's acknowledging David is doing here. He's overcoming evil with good. Well, let's continue on here in 1 Samuel 24, verses 20 through 22. Now behold, I know well that you shall surely be king, and the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear now, therefore, unto me by the Lord, that you will not cut off my seed after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David swore unto Saul. Saul went home, and David's men gat him up into the hold. Okay, Saul knows that he was going to be king, acknowledges it here again. And because of that, he wants in the promise he won't come after after Saul's dead and David's king. He won't just try to wipe out his whole household. Not just his own, his extended household as well, his father's house as well, but particularly his own house. Not destroy to wipe out every one of his descendants. Of course, he wouldn't, because that would include Jonathan. And so David promises this. He's not gonna hold the sins of the fathers against the children, which the Torah says not to do. So David has shown his loyalty again to Saul by making this promise. Now, we're gonna look at our next episode here in first chapter in the life of David. Here again regarding this business about the hand of vengeance here in 1 Samuel 25 verses 1 through 4. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. There was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. The man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail. Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. Okay. Caleb means dog, like the heart. What it means dog. But churlish is a reference to kind of like a stupid dog, okay? Or like a mean dog without a home, okay? Like an alley dog or something of that nature. And he's contrasted with his wife. No, she's a beautiful countenance and of good understanding. Now, there's a little traveling going on down here. We haven't seen the word Paran, the word Paran, in a long time. That was down. That was one. That's where Israel. That's part of where Israel wandered in the wilderness was at. So David has actually left the promised land at that point, and this man is from known his possessions here in Judah, but Carmel's way up here. Here's Carmel right here. This is the Jezreel Valley over here on this side of it, and he is going to, and he's got 3,000 sheep and 3,000 goats there. He's exceeding, but this is not land inside of his own tribe's allotment and stuff, which again shows that problem we talked about before. In fact, even this here, remember Asher was supposed to include Dor, and Issachar should have went over this way further also. And Manasseh, even though he had all his land anyways, went there and occupied it. So this man's got that same mindset to occupying what's not his. That's part of how he built his wealth. And he's just sort of vicious. So so David hears of this man doing this. He hears that Nabal. Okay, so he's been out there. He's been out in the wilderness of Paran, and he hears this man's doing the sheep because perhaps someone from Judah came down and told David. He had people helping him like that, obviously, because we can see it in scripture earlier. So now, really, what David does about this? First Samuel 25, verse 5 through 8. David sent out 10 young men. David said to the young men, "Get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus shall say that lives in prosperity. Peace be to both you, and peace into your house, and peace into all that you have. I've now heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds which were with us we heard not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. And ask your young men, they shall show you. Let the young men find favor in your eyes, for we come into a good day. Give, I pray you, whatsoever comes to your hand to your servants, to your servant and to your servant and your son David." Okay, so when David heard of him going down there, he left here, walked up here 3, 4, let's see, from Galilee down to Jerusalem. He went the straight route. Was about a 2-day walk. So 4 or 5 days he walked. Him and his men walked up here, and they've been guarding the sheep here, and now they just want some assistance to help them. They had hurt the shepherds, and there wasn't anything missing, which was unusual when you think about 3,000 sheep and goats. Okay, three or 1,000 goats, 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Typically, when goes that far over there, some are gonna get picked up by predators, thieves, etc. But there's actually none missing. So therefore, They just want what they can spare to help David and his men. And he has great prosperity. And they're speaking to him peaceably. We're going to look at his response to this peaceable request. In 1 Samuel 25, verse 9 through 12, we see it. And when David's young men came, they came to Nabal according to the words of all the words of the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servant, saying, Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There may be there be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Then shall I take my bread, my water, my flesh that I have killed from my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not from where they are? So David's men turned away and went again and came and told him all those things. Okay, they've been helping Nabal's men, and Nabal, they went to him peaceably, and he answers them with, roughly, insultingly. Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Well, remember last week, Saul had taken the entire army of Israel trying to hunt David down. They were all there when David took out Goliath. The army of all of Israel was there then as well. He noticed even those whose David's father is, the son of Jesse. But Nabal's like, why should I help you? You're not king today. Very short term vision. Obviously doesn't believe the word of the Lord that he's going to become king. He just sees David as he is at that moment, him and his men. And now, and he talks about the men of David and David himself as like they're runaway slaves. David running away from Saul, and so he just sees no reason to help David at all, and and lets him know what he really thinks of him as well. Well, now we're looking at David's response to this. This insulting manner they answered his men after they went to him peaceably. And David said to his men, Gird you every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. And one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good to us. We were not hurt, neither we missed anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us by both day and night, by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now, therefore, no one consider what you will do. For evil will turn against our master and against all his household. For he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. Here's our term we haven't seen in a while. A son of Belial. Meaning having the characteristics of Belial, of Satan, really. And that was speaking of the Gibeonites who raped the concubine of the Levite until she was dead. I mean, this man just has an evil dispensation. This man just nothing but evil about him. But they don't go to him. A man cannot speak to him. He's just going to rail on them, perhaps fire or feeling their status, have them beaten or whatever. They talk to him. But they go to his wife, who's of good understanding. She has wisdom. If Nabal had any sense at all, he would have had his wife handling these things for him in the first place. But he's too proud and arrogant to do such a thing. So they say, so now we're looking at her response to this. And not much of those, they were very good to us. This is why they didn't miss anything, because they were guarding them. They were a wall to us. They were between them and the predators. and the thieves they normally take some losses from. First Samuel 25, verse 18 to 20. We continue on. Then Abigail made haste, took two, and we look at her reaction to this. Abigail made haste, took 200 loaves, two bottles of wine, five sheep already dressed, five measures of parched corn, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. She told her servants, "Go before me, behold, I come after you." But she told not her husband Nabal. And as soon as it was so, as soon as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert on the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Okay, so she recognizes David and his men are hangry. They're hungry and angry. The first thing she does is he's gonna appease them and get rid of that hunger problem. Gonna give him some food. And let her know that she's not like them, but they're gonna get rid of that food issue. And now she's gonna talk to him, that hunger issue, I should say. And now she's gonna talk to him about Nabal. But first, we get some insight here in 1 Samuel 25, verse 21 through 22, about David's intention of all these men with his swords. Now, David had said, "Surely in vain I've kept all his fellow has in the wilderness, so nothing was missed of all that pertains to him. He's requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David. Believe all that pertain to him by morning light, any that pisses against the wall." So, David is against the wall is reference to any male. David is ready to kill. I mean, that's literal from a toddler up, okay? Could include infants. He's ready to kill every male in the house of Nabal for insulting his men and himself, of course, ultimately. And that's his response to this. He's still angry. She's taking care of the hunger problem. He's went from hangry to angry, just angry. But now we're looking at Abigail, what she does about the angry problem. We continue on here in 1 Samuel 25, verses 23 through 25. And we're looking at the beginning of our strategy to take care of the angry problem. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted and slided off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, "Look upon me, O Lord, my Lord, upon me, O Lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let your handmaiden, I pray you speak in your audience, hear the words of your handmaid. Let not my Lord, I pray you disregard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for so as his name is, so he is. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your handmaid, saw not the young men, my Lord, whom you did send." Okay, so notice first thing she does, she intercedes. It's like Moses interceding for Israel, telling God, destroy me, not them. She's interceding for her husband, even though he's a bad husband. She's still and for all those other males in the household, and perhaps she had children by Nabal, and perhaps she had a son among them. We don't know that one way or the other, but just saying it's a possibility. But regardless, she is interceding. Let his iniquity be upon me. This is Messiah interceded for our behalf, and the iniquity, our iniquity, was laid upon him. And notice she tells about her innocence. She didn't see the young men that David had sent. And notice, my Lord, she says to him, she's acknowledging that acknowledging that David's going to be the ruler. Okay, now it becomes a little plainer here in a moment. Now, therefore, we'll see how she continues on to deal with the anger problem. Our strategy here is to deal with this angry problem, so the David to turn away the wrath of David. Now, therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives, as your soul lives, seeing the Lord has withheld you from coming to shed blood, avenge yourself with your own hand. Let now your enemies, and they that seek evil, my Lord, be as Nabal. Now, this is the blessing which your enemy has brought to my Lord, has brought into my Lord, is even given to the young men that follow my Lord. I pray you, forgive the trespass of your handmaid. The Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil has not been found in you all your days. Okay, so notice her next part of this is the Lord's withheld him from avenging himself with his own hand. Vengeance of the Lord, it says in the Torah, he will repay. If it's his and we take it if the hand of vengeance is ours instead of his, we're stealing what's his. Now there'll be times when the Lord will work through people to say, like we saw with Saul's failure, he told him, go venge me of the Amalekites. But we just do this because we're mad and angry, insulted, feel we've been dissed. Nope. We are stealing from the Lord. And she says the Lord has withheld him. And notice the blessing, that blessing's the food, so they wouldn't be hungry anymore. And notice she asked for forgiveness. She said, put the iniquity on me. Now she's asking for forgiveness for that iniquity. Even though she didn't know anything about it and notice her confidence in the Lord is going to make you a sure household. And why? Because he's fighting the battles of the Lord. And evil's not been found in you all your days. Okay, so he's about to mess that up, was on his way, but the Lord sent her to withhold him from coming to shed that. And she's saying, seek evil, my Lord, be as Nabal. She's saying, let the Lord handle Nabal. Let him take vengeance instead of you take, let the hand of vengeance be the Lord's, not yours. And we look, and we wrap up with our strategy here to turn the wrath of David to turn his anger with these are our final words in this in so doing. Yet a man has risen to pursue you to seek your soul, but the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord your God. Your souls of your enemies, the enemy shall sling out out of the middle of a sling. It shall come to pass, the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and appointed you ruler over Israel. And this shall not be no grief to you, nor offensive heart to my Lord. Neither shall you shed blood causeless, or that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt well with my Lord, remember your handmaid. Okay, so a man has risen to pursue you, referring to Saul, to seek his soul. But the Lord has been protecting him. And those are the enemies of David. He's going to sling out, meaning he will take care of them. And notice the confidence that he's going to do this. And he's going to make him. He's going to become ruler of Israel. And when this occurs, she tells you don't want this to be looking back on this day with regret or and being guilty of shedding innocent blood. The only one who did anything wrong was Nabal. And David was ready to kill all the males of the whole household over it. And not to avenge himself, not for David not to be the hand of vengeance. And finally, she played them when the Lord's dealt well. Then remember your handmaid her. Remember her how she came and they're seated to stop him from commit from him from being the hand of vengeance himself instead of letting the Lord be the hand of vengeance because he would have regretted it. It was the rest of his life. We're looking at the effect now. We're looking at the effect of Abigail's strategy to turn away the anger of David as well. And David said, and we here in 1 Samuel 25, verse 32 through 35. And David said to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent you this day to meet me. And blessed be your advice, and blessed be you, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood, revenging myself with my own hand. For verily indeed, as the Lord God of Israel lives, which has kept me back from hurting you, except you had hastened and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal any in the morning by morning light that pisses against the wall." So David received her hand which she had brought him, and said to her, "Go up in peace to your house. See, I have hearkened to your voice and have accepted your person." Okay, so David is blessed and recognizes the Lord is the one who really sent Abigail. The Lord kept him from hurting Abigail and listening to her, even though he was angry. The Lord, and she was the Lord's instrument that kept him from shedding innocent blood, and his hand being the hand of vengeance. So, and now he tells her, and he ends with, you're successful. Turn my wrath away. I'm not going to I'm not going to be the hand of vengeance. I'm going to let the Lord handle it, as you said. Okay, we're looking at what happens when she goes back to her house with Nabal. As we continue on here in 1 Samuel 25, verse 36 through 39. And David came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast, like the feast of a king, and Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Therefore she told him nothing more or less till morning light. And it came to pass in the morning when the wine was gone out of Nabal, his wife told him these things, his heart died within him and became as a stone. And it came to pass that about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal that he died. And when David heard Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord that pled the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. The Lord has returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head." And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. Okay, so no, again, she's good understanding. Wait, what? Doesn't talk to him while he's drunk. Doesn't say anything to him till morning light. And notice his reaction. His heart died within him. It doesn't mean his heart pumps blood. He'd been dead then. But his spirit is gone. He became as a stone. He went to a catatonic state. All of his boasting, all of his pride, all of it just gone. Apparently, it never occurred to him that David would. He was, endangering himself and everyone else in his house, all their males in his house. So he's going into a state of shock, basically. And 10 days of that, and the Lord just killed him, smote him, gave him a heart attack, whatever the case was. And notice David's reaction when he hears he's dead. He blesses him for being the hand of vengeance for David's case. He blessed him, keeping him from taking matters into his own hands, being the hand of vengeance himself. But then he sends a message. He sent and communed with Abigail to take her. He sent a messenger basically saying, David wants to marry you now that Nabal is dead. I mean, he's only met her once. You can see she was beautiful, but you can see by her actions also she was wise. And that's all he needed to know. But her husband's just died. Well, let's look at the reaction of Abigail to this thing, because David's on the run. He really doesn't have time to wait around or anything. Either she's going to say yes or no, but he's going to move on either way. So let's go on to 1 Samuel 25, verses 40 through 44. When the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, they said to they spoke to her, saying, David has sent us to you to take him to wife. She arose and bowed herself upon the face of the earth, and said, Behold, let the handmaiden be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And Abigail hasted and arose and rode upon an ass, with 5 damsels of her that went after her. And she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal, David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Galim. So, I mean, she's only met David once, to appease his anger, dealt with his hunger and his anger, got an angry state, and they intercede. As soon as her husband's dead, David says, "Come marry me," and she knows he's on the run from King Saul. She had said that herself earlier. And she's the widow of Nabal, arguably, perhaps if Nabal didn't have any sons, she'd have to marry someone, his brothers, to raise up seed or something like that. Perhaps he did, and she didn't have that obligation, or he just didn't have any. Perhaps, who knows? But she's arguably going to have all this wealth, but she knows, she has faith that God's going to bring about what he said concerning David. And she knows David is a man after God's heart, who's who's running because he's doing the right thing. And Abigail immediately says yes. And notice her humility. A servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Again, our actions remind us of Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. How he washed the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper. Now, Michal, remember, I told her father David threatened to kill her, which wasn't true, but she's just too afraid of her father. And notice he's given her to this other man. Well, he really can't do that, and we'll talk about that in a future lesson. We'll look at that in more detail. But yes, but there's nothing biblically correct about doing this. Once he gave her to David, she was no longer his to give to someone. Okay. And just so you know, again, Jezreel's right. Here's Carmel, here's Jezreel, and David's getting ready to leave that area. Now, we're gonna look at our third episode with David concerning the hand of vengeance here in 1 Samuel 26, 1 through 4. And here's what we read. And the Ziphites came to Saul to Gibeah, saying, does not David hide himself in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Yeshimon? And David and Saul arose and went up to the wilderness of Ziph, and having 3,000 chosen men of Israel with him to seek David in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul and Shaul pitched in the hill of Hakilah, which is before Yeshimon, by the way. But David abode in the wilderness, and Shaul came after him in the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Shaul was coming very deed. Okay. Notice David went back here where it hid before, and Saul told him to spy for him. These men were totally loyal to Saul, disloyal to God, and they haven't changed. Kind of. David had forts and stuff there, familiar with it, but he almost got killed there by Saul before. Well, David has his own spies I mentioned before, and he recognizes he didn't go Saul before because they went their separate ways. Because Saul's not mentally stable to say the least. We're going to continue on in 1 Samuel 26, verse 5 through 8. We're going to read the following. David arose, he came to the place where Saul had pitched. David beheld the place where Saul lay. And Abner, the son of Ner, the captain of his host, and Saul lay in the trench. The people pitched around about him. Then David sent to Ahimelech, the Hittite, and to Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, the brother of Joab, saying, who will go down with me into the camp? And Abishai said, I'll go down with you. So David and Abishai went down to the people by night. And behold, Saul was sleeping within the trench. His spear stuck in the ground of his bolster. And that's right, bolster. And Abner and the people lay round about him. Then said Abishai to David, God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now, therefore, let me smite him, I pray, even with the spear, even to the earth at once. I'll not smite him the second time. Okay. So, Saul's got his army there, 3,000. And of course, Saul's going to be in the middle of that. And this trench his general's right next to him. And David's like, let's go down there. We'll go with me to Saul. Now, there's two people here. Ahimelech, king's brother to the king, and Abishai. Okay, I'm like, who's a Jew and Gentile and Jew here. Okay. Remember, the Hittites is one of those groups there's the drive out. There's the drive out or kill off. They wouldn't leave. But not to make leagues with. But like we saw with the Gibeah, if they came to God in peace and became worshipers of God, they were allowed to stay. Now, the fact he's still called a Hittite means he wasn't circumcised. As we saw in Exodus 12, the rule is if you were circumcised for this reason, you're no longer considered a Gentile, but part of the tribe of Israel, as if you were native born, as if you were a physical descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This tells us he's not circumcised. It's Jew and Gentile together in David's men. And but this Abishai is willing to go down there with him. So now Abishai says, let me kill him for you." That means I won't smite him at the same time. I mean, he'll get him in one stroke. Perhaps like Yael had pegged and drove a peg through the head of into the temple of Sisera. Perhaps he's going to run that spear through Saul's head, or perhaps through his heart. But he's going to kill him in one stroke. And this is why he tells David, "Let me do it, David. You don't want to do it? Let me do it." Well, we're going to look at David's response here in 1 Samuel 26, verse 9 through 12. "And David said to Abishai, 'Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? Furthermore, as the Lord lives, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall send into battle and perish. Lord forbid that I should stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. I pray you, take now the spirit as his boister and the cruse of wire, and let us go.' So David took the spear and the cruse of wire from Saul's boister, and they got them away. No man saw it, nor knew it, or awakened, but they were all asleep because a deep sleep from the Lord was upon them." Okay, so David's immediate response is, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do it." The Lord, if Abishai destroyed the Lord, had struck down Saul, the Lord would have been guilty for the Lord, and the Lord would have been against Abishai. So David says, "I'm going to let the Lord handle this. The Lord shall smite him." Lord, he's giving them options here. The Lord will smite him like he just did with Nabal, or he's just going to die of old age, or he's going to die in battle. I'm going to let the Lord handle it. Now, we get an explanation of how they could sneak into a camp of 3,000, no one wake up, get caught, and even have this perhaps whispered conversation right there close to Saul. It's because a deep sleep came upon the Lord. It was a supernatural sleep like that that came upon Adam when God took a rib out of him to form Eve. Now, we continue on here in 1 Samuel 26, 13 through 16, and we see what David does with his spear in this cruse of water. Saul's water jug, as it were, water skin, whatever. Then David went over to their side and stood on the top of a hill far off, a great space being between them. David cried to the people and to Abner the son of Ner, saying, "Answer you not, Abner?" And then Abner answered and said, "Who are you that cries to the king?" David said to Abner, "Are you not a valiant man? And who is like you in Israel? Wherefore have you not kept your lord the king? For there came one of the people in to destroy the king, the king, my lord. I'm sorry, the king, your lord. The thing is not good you have done. As the Lord lives, you are worthy to die, because you have not kept your master, the Lord's anointed. See now where the king's spear is. The cruse of wire was at his boister." So Abner's the first one that answers. He doesn't recognize David's voice. But Abner's well known. He's the general. And, like when I was in the military and I was in the Air Force, In wartime, this was enforced sometimes. The penalty for falling asleep on guard duty was death. And in war, the reason why that is because you fall asleep on you're guarding the lives of all those other men, of all those other people who are laying there who are sleeping. And if you fall asleep, there's no one to guard them, and someone could very well come and kill all of them. And this is what he's saying here about Abner. He was right next to Saul. His job was to make sure someone was awake to do this. Of course, the Lord sent this deep sleep, and there was nothing they could have done about it. But nonetheless, David was kind of taunting Abner here, about his lackluster job of guarding Saul, King Saul. Now we're looking at Saul's reaction to this because he's gonna hear all this commotion and he's gonna recognize David's voice. And then we're continuing on 1 Samuel 26, verse 16 through 17, 17 through 20. And Saul knew David's voice and said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" David said, "Is my voice, my Lord, O king?" He said, "Wherefore does my Lord pursue after this servant? What have I done? Or what evil is in my hand? Now therefore I pray you, let my Lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. For they be the children of men, cursed be they before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, Go serve other gods. Go serve other gods." That's more like it. Now therefore, let let my blood, let not my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to seek a flea, as one does hunt a partridge in the mountains. Okay, so Saul recognized, and notice David says again, "My Lord." Okay, he's not disputing the authority of the king, but God's the highest authority, and we're not to obey the government if it means disobeying God. We're doing something foolish because they're trying to harm us, which again be contrary to the will of God. And notice he wants to know why he's done what's evil in his hands. And he gets to the root of the problem. He's not being served by the Lord. Lord, sir, let him accept an offering. We can make an offering, and the Lord, and settle the matter with the Lord with an offering. But if they be the children of men, or we saw earlier, where men had stirred him up, and these men who've been bearing false witness against David, saying remember what he said before. They told him that David was trying to kill him, and David's twice had the opportunity and twice didn't do it. And they drove him. And notice, go serve other gods. Well, remember, when he ran to the wilderness, he had actually left they've driven him out from abiding in the inheritance of the Lord. He left the promised land at one point to escape them. He went earlier before and Gad the prophet, Moab, and Gad the prophet had sent him. He went to Achish the Philistine, but that's technically in the area of promised Judah. But recently he went to Paran, back to the wilderness where the children of Israel had been. And their goal was to have him serve other gods. And yeah, a flea, insignificant, and a partridge in the mountains. A partridge is a bird. They're related to quail and pheasant and chickens, for that matter. And grouse. They're bigger. They're larger than a quail. They're like maybe twice the size of a quail a quail normally, and they vary in size. They're between the size of a quail and a grouse, okay, or the size of a quail and a chicken. You can think if you don't familiar with the size of a grouse. And the thing is that they live in the mountains generally, and their coloration kind of matches the rocks and stuff around there. And in their day, they didn't have shotguns. They have to go out there and find these things, and then shoot them with a bow and arrow, and can take them on the wing, you know, but you only get one shot, and it's just a lot of work to go to hunt these partridges. So David's saying, why are you putting all this effort into something that's to me, toward me when I'm so insignificant? And we wrap up with this final passage here in 1 Samuel 26, verse 21 through 25, with Saul's response to this. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I'll do you no more harm, because my soul is precious in your eyes this day. Behold, I have played the fool and have erred exceedingly. David answered, Behold the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and fetch it. Lord, render every man his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today. I will not stretch forth my hand against the Lord's anointed. Behold, as your life was much set by this day in my eyes, so let my life much be set by in the eyes of the Lord. Let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, Blessed be you, my son David. You shall do great things, and shall still prevail. So David went his way, and Saul returned to his place. They made this father-son thing. Well, one reason is because David had married Michal. He doesn't know Saul's given her someone else at this point. He doesn't know this yet. And that makes Saul his father-in-law. David is his son-in-law. Okay. And he said he asked him to return. Come back to the palace. Come back to come back to where you've been fleeing from. I'm not going to hurt you. Saul admits his foolishness in all this. But alas, the king's mind, the king has an unstable mind, and so David does not go with him. But Saul notices he's going to prevail. He's going to do great things to prevail. He's going to become the king, except which he said before, and do great things after that. He's still going to rebel against him. So David would not, and this was the whole thing. The whole thing of this why the Lord, it says plainly the Lord set this up twice, not for David to kill Saul, or for David to show mercy to Saul, for David to not take to show Saul he's not trying to kill him as these false reports had been. The people who've been telling Saul this have been proven to be liars. We're to overcome evil with good. Liars will be found out always, eventually. We're to show that any kind of witness testimony against us about doing evil is a false testimony. There's no truth to it. Even our enemies will acknowledge this, and we also are going to do great things and going to prevail if we will not put ourselves take the hand of vengeance for ourselves, but let the hand of vengeance be that of the Lord. So bless those that persecute you. Pray. Bless those that curse you. Pray for those who persecute you. As Messiah said. That's all I have for this week. Until next week, shalom.